It's time for my most disappointing albums of the year. I'm using the word disappointing albums because they consist of bands and or artists who have been around for a significant amount of time. They've released albums that were not up to my expectations. These are not in any order. They're just my opinion. I'm sure if you watched other worst of videos, you will see that some of these will be familiar. The first album is the only album to make the list 2 years in a row, and this is because the album was released in 3 acts. With the first one released at the end of 22, and that album is The Smashing Pumpkins with Autumn. This band has shown us that they can make a killer double album with Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness, an album over 2 hours long that has minimal filler. On the other hand, Autumn has about 8 songs, I would say, that are good, and the rest was filler for me. The album mixed grunge songs reminiscent of the 90s material and electronic music that was reminiscent of their newer material. I have nothing against electronic music, I just thought the songs were not good, so therefore it is once again on my list. Next is Rockstar by Dolly Parton. This was another album that was just very long, probably not a good idea in the first place. The idea came when Dolly Parton was to be inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. At first, she just rejected the nomination, saying she was just a country artist. But she eventually accepted the honor and was inducted. She then came up with the idea of making a rock album. This was a big project, included collaborations with some of the biggest stars in rock and pop. The end result was something that was too long, and there were only a few decent songs. Most of the songs were cover songs. Some were not that bad. For example, the cover of Purple Rain was not too bad. But others were bad, such as the cover of Stairway to Heaven with Lizzo. I have nothing against Dolly Parton. I believe she is a great country star. Her song Jolene is one of my favorite country songs of all time. Her movie 9 to 5 was one of the first movies I ever saw in the theater as a child. Nothing against Dolly, but this album was a miss. Next is Roger Waters with Dark Side of the Moon Redux. The concept of this alone was just a bad idea. I think when you have an album that legendary like Dark Side of the Moon, there's no need to remake it. This new version takes songs from what many people would agree is a perfect album, and he changes them up. These songs include him speaking during some of the instrumentals and just speaking over the songs in general. I think if you wanted to remake an album, you should have done one of the albums that had room for improvement. My suggestion would be to remake The Final Cut. That might be a controversial suggestion, but I know a lot of people find that album kind of boring, and that was his album. Anyway, in the end, it was just a bad idea, and I think many people would agree with me. Next is Corey Taylor with CMF2, follow-up to a solo album from 2020 called CMFT. This one was not very good. I felt there was just lack of cohesion with the songs. Some of it sounded like leftovers from past Slipknot albums. There were songs that sounded like Stone Sour ballads, and he even delved into some different genres. I didn't like the album cover. It looked like something that was made on Canva in about 5 minutes. There were a few songs that I thought were okay, such as Talk Sick, that had a grunge and punk rock sound, and Starmate, that had a goth rock vibe. There were some songs I thought were pretty bad, like Post Traumatic Blues. The song I felt sounded like a demo from the cutting room floor of what was left over from All Hope Is Gone. I also didn't like We Are the Rest. It's a country rock song. It just didn't work for me. And I didn't like Someday I'll Change Your Mind, a song that reminded me of a mix of Bon Jovi and Coldplay. Overall, I probably won't be returning to this album. Next is 30 Seconds to Mars. It's the end of the world, but it's a beautiful day. It's an album from a band I never liked in the first place. I had to listen to it because I was asked to do an episode of Is It That Bad with the Chill Dude on the Couch and live listening erased. Before I listened to this, I had to stream a few of their older songs just to refresh my memory. I kind of forgot what this band sounded like. The one song I remembered was their hit called The Kill. This one features an emo Jared Leto. I put this album on and it was like something completely different. It was electronic, modern pop album. It felt like I was opening like a Hershey's bar and finding beef jerky inside. Some of the worst offenders were track number 3, Seasons, a country song that sounded like Billy Ray Cyrus. With that one, I kept waiting for Lil Nas to come out and do a rap. Then you got track number 8, Never Not Love You. Number 1, because it's just a sappy ballad, and number 2, because the song title is not grammatically correct. they used a double negative. Overall, an album band I probably will never listen to again. Next is Godsmack with Lighting Up the Sky. This band was very big in the 2000s. They had 3 consecutive #1 albums. Their album sold millions of copies. They had a lot of radio rock hits. In 2019, they released an album called When Legends Rise, and this was also a disappointing album. They decided that they wanted to release one more album, and that would be their last, and it's called Lighting Up the Sky. The album's not really bad. It's just not a great album. I think a lot of people had this on their disappointing or worst end-of-year list. The opening track, You and I, was not too bad. It had a cool guitar riff and some psychedelic influences. Similar to a song on the second half of the album called Let's Go, which I also liked. Red, White, and Blue was not too bad. The lyrics sound something like Ted Nugent would write, but it was okay. And then things start to get a little poppy with the song Surrender. There were 2 ballads called Truth and Growing Old. They were very emotional and not too bad. Then there were some songs I didn't like, such as Soul on Fire and Best of Times. But in the end, if I had to save one album from this list, it would be this, because this one is like not really that bad. But my next pick is pretty bad. It's Puddle of Mud with Ubiquitous. I used to like this band. I still have their first album, Come Clean, on CD, and I think it still holds up well. Blurry is one of my favorite songs of all time. After this album, they start to go downhill, and this album is just not good. A lot of songs try too hard to sound like Nirvana. Songs like My Baby, Man in the Mirror, and Dance With Me, the latter of which starts the first verse sounding very similar to the chorus of Come As You Are. Then there's a song You Wrecked Me, sounds a lot like Heart Shaped Box. The song Cash and Cobain sounds like one of those Kid Rock country rap songs. Candy is a piano ballad that's not very good. I can kind of hear his vocals strain on that song. The last song, Poke Out My Eyes, is supposedly from the 1994 EP called Stuck, which makes sense because it kind of sounds a lot like Burn My Head which kind of makes sense because it sounds like Machine Head's Burn My Eyes. Overall, it's just not good. And that's my top 10 list. Check out some of the full reviews of this album mentioned here. It'll be right around there. Let me know your picks for the most disappointing albums of the year in the comments below. We'll compare our lists. Don't forget to leave this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Please subscribe to our channel for more rock and metal content like this. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you in the next video.